this is Jason Spangler, the Santee Swapper. Want to record a quick video and just share with you some information about my antique mall booth. I'm a Boy Scout memorabilia dealer. Actually, it's a full-time job. And one of the unique strategies I have for selling Boy Scout memorabilia and kind of making this into a business is I have an antique mall booth. It's located in Lumberton, North Carolina, at a location called Somewhere in Time Antiques. That's a antique mall that's right on the Interstate 95, real easy to find. I'm going to use this video to show you some pictures of the inside of my booth. One reason to shoot the video is because I actually got an email recently from a gentleman who was going to be traveling during spring break, and he wanted to maybe stop by and see what I had. He was kind of curious to know what sort of things did I have in my booth. And I thought, well, that's a good reason to shoot a video and kind of show people some of the items that are located in the booth. One thing that I've used this booth for is to really try to push items that I call 3D objects. Things like trophies, uniforms, equipment like canteens and hatchets and knives and axes. Things like books, artwork, big framed prints. Just anything that really doesn't lend itself to being shipped, or maybe it doesn't really seem like something that would do very well on eBay. I've put those in my antique mall booth to give them a place where they could maybe find a willing buyer. I launched my antique mall booth in February of 2014 at Somewhere in Time Antiques. Started off with just a small booth, about 6x9, but now that I've come up on my 1-year anniversary, I'm actually looking at doubling the size of that booth, maybe even a little bit more than that, going to a booth that's about 17 feet wide by 9 feet deep. And that's going to allow me to put a lot more stuff in that area. Got plenty of things in my garage that would love to find a location where they could be out for display and for sale. And that's one of the kind of the beauties of an antique mall booth. You know, you could pay for storage somewhere and have your stuff in boxes sitting up on shelves, or you could pay a rental fee to rent a booth and actually have them sitting out for sale 7 days a week. That's what I would rather do, and that's kind of the strategy that I'm using with my antique mall booth. Now, just to give you an idea, in a typical antique mall, what's going to happen is you're going to be paying two different types of fees. You're going to pay a booth rental fee, which typically is going to run you about $1 to $1.25 per square foot. And you're also going to pay a commission on any sales that you have. And I've sort of found that typically runs about 10% commission. Very similar to eBay. If you like selling on the internet, you'll recognize that 10% fee. Typically, about once a month, you're going to get settled up with those folks. They're going to cut you a check and give you a sales report, and that'll square everything up. Some of the booths or some of the places will actually deduct your rent from your check at the end of the month, and then some will expect you to pay that in a separate payment. Just kind of depends on how that works with your place. At Somewhere in Time Antiques, for me, it's the latter. I write them a check every month, and I also collect a check from them for whatever my sales are. I would say that having an antique mall booth is definitely not a huge moneymaker. I've had some people ask me, how you doing? How's that working out for you? For me, it's really just the idea of having a brick and mortar location. I know that sounds a little silly, but when you have an online business where you've been doing eBay for well over a decade, it's kind of neat to have a physical location that I can decorate and dress up with all this cool Boy Scout and Girl Scout stuff that I want to sell. Plus, it allows me again to display some things that I probably wouldn't be able to sell on the internet. Now, as a brick and mortar location, I actually have had a couple of opportunities where people have stopped by and asked for me to come out and meet them so they could take a look at things and, make me some offers or ask me about some of the things that I have. And that's been kind of fun to do as well. One thing about having an antique mall booth I've discovered is you really have to work it. And I mean that in the sense that not only do you have to go in and put new inventory in and kind of move things around, keep it straight, but you also have to promote it. And I've tried to do that in a couple of different ways. One of the main ways I did that was by setting up a website, santeeswapperstore.com. And on that website, I've tried to use it as kind of like a blog, sort of like updating it whenever I put new items in the store. The other thing I learned how to do was to claim my Google business listing. So if you were to go on Google and actually type in Santee Swapper Store or Somewhere in Time Antiques, it would actually come up with my booth, and you'd have some pictures of the booth and contact information, what hours it's open, all that kind of good stuff. So that works out pretty well. Some other folks have asked me, do you have to be there? As in, if I have a booth, do I have to be there? And of course, no. That's the whole beauty of having an antique mall booth. Part of the rent that I'm paying is paying for the employees to run the store. They sort of hang up it at the front for the most part. And if someone makes a purchase, they take up the money, they make a record of it, and then at the end of the month, I get a report. So 7 days a week, pretty much every day of the year, that booth is going to be open for business, but I don't have to be there. And so that's definitely one of the advantages to having an antique mall booth. So as I come up on my 1 year anniversary and I expand my store at Somewhere in Time Antiques, I'm looking forward to putting some more stuff in there, especially adding lots more patches. I really want to kind of get it to the point where there's probably thousands, maybe 5,000 or 10,000 patches in there, which is not something you typically see in an antique mall booth, but I think it could be something that's successful. Not really expensive patches, $3, $5 patches. I've had a little bit of luck with having dollar patches in there. And if those of you who are Scout memorabilia people, you'll know what those are from traderies and such. So I've just tried to make this kind of like a permanent tradery setup for me, and so far so good. It's worked out pretty well. So far this year, doing this my first year, I have not had a month where I didn't at least cover my booth rent, which is probably the number one goal. Ideally, I think I've been told you'd like to make about 3 times your booth rent is kind of your ideal number in order to make this a worthwhile venture. And I haven't always done that for sure. But then again, I need to, I sort of tell myself I need to work a little harder, put some more interesting stuff out there, promote it a little bit better. So I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. So I hope you've enjoyed this little inside video showing you some things that I have at my antique mall booth. Again, it's located at SanteeSwapperStore.com, and the physical location is in Lumberton, North Carolina, and an antique mall called Somewhere in Time Antiques. It's on Kahn Drive, Kahn, and you can Google all that and pull it right up. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed this video.